Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Paddock Pass podcast and a special show ahead of the British Grand Prix. Or is it the Grand Prix of United Kingdom, Great Britain and Northern Ireland? Just to make things slightly simpler, MotoGP going in the other direction to common sense. I'm Adam Wheeler, and it's fantastic to be joined by Neil Morrison, who's got to wean himself off plenty of kilos of pizza and Aperol Spritz and tiramisu, possibly, Neil?
Yeah, exactly. Had a quick stop off in Sicily after Le Mans. A couple of nights in Palermo, a couple of nights in Catania, which are both beautiful, beautiful cities. And perfect preparation for the beauty of Milton Keynes, which is coming up this weekend.
I don't understand why you lot stay in Milton Keynes, honestly. I still have nightmares. My family are from near there,
Well, maybe, Neil, you should follow Dave's sort of health regime that he enacted last weekend of climbing up the Netherlands' highest mountain. Dave, I'm glad you got back without frostbite.
It's strictly speaking, it's not the highest mountain. It's 110 meters, and the highest point is 330, I think. But that's shared with the Netherlands, with Belgium and Germany. So we don't even have our own mountain. But yeah, it's my local mountain. We didn't get all the way to the top. We set up base camp at 70 meters, and didn't want to venture any further.
And it's fantastic to be joined by a man who just scoffs at any notions of altitude, especially when he's on two wheels of the pedal kind. Cal Crutchlow, fantastic to have you on the podcast, mate. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for inviting me on. I really appreciate it. It's great to see Neil still got his bags packed in his background. Ready. I think he's ready to go again.
Always ready.
No, great to be here. Excited to be on the show.
Cal, first of all, it's British Grand Prix week. I looked it up, and a couple of years ago, the biggest attendance that Silverstone had was in 2016, where you're on pole position. You finished sort of second on Sunday. I just wondered, what was it kind of like being in sort of the eye of the storm, so to speak, the British Grand Prix week and over the weekend? It must have been pretty intense.
Yeah, it was always a difficult race for me. It's a difficult race for everybody. But I had a love-hate relationship with it. I loved riding at Silverstone, but the whole weekend was busy. It was just busy. Pressure-wise, I was always okay, but it's just a busy weekend. You're starting on the full race week is Monday. You're already doing stuff for TV shows, radio, and stuff like that. But by the time you're at the circuit on Wednesday, you're fully into it. And it was always a difficult one to manage because you're there to race a motorcycle and you want to give everybody the time, whether that be sponsors, fans, friends, family, whatever it is. It was always a tough one to be able to go to and concentrate on the race, really, because you had another million things. Now, I only had one of them a year. Imagine the Italian guys. The problem was there's 4 or 5 Italian riders or 6, and they can share the media duties, let's say. But a lot of the time, when I raced at Silverstone, it was only me or one other. Whether that was Scott or Brad or Sam Lowes at the time, Eugene. But it was a difficult one to manage. There was no doubt about that. But I loved racing Silverstone. It was a circuit that I always got on well with. I had some good success there in British Championship days, World Championship days, and then MotoGP days. There's one thing about Silverstone I know. I know the medical centre very well. I know the local hospital very well. But yeah, it was either it went a great race weekend or a very difficult race weekend, and that was just the way it was. But Silverstone, I was only there a couple of weeks ago doing something for TNT Sports, and it is such a great facility, and you see when F1 goes there, the amount of people that go for F1. I don't mind watching F1, but it's not the racing we give. It's not the racing that the MotoGP gives, and I just can't understand why we can't just get. I'm not saying more people there, but you see Formula One, everything is packed. You can't see a piece of grass,
Yeah.
And on a MotoGP weekend, some grandstands are full, and outside the circuit, outside of them grandstands, it's difficult to see crowds packed in. And I'd love to see it back when you know, even when Barry Sheen and those guys were there, the place was absolutely rammed. They were trying to get onto the circuit, and the way that racing, let's say, should be. I'm not saying climb onto the circuit, but you know, it's difficult to get it back to that level when we go to other places in Europe and you see the TV shots of the other places in Europe, the place is absolutely rammed. So I'm the first guy that tries to still promote to get people to a MotoGP race. People say all the time, what you do and what, you know, racing the bikes and MotoGP is so fantastic, but elbows on the floor, they pass, and I'm like, okay, we'll go and see it, you know, go and watch it. And you once you're there, you know, you three know yourselves, once you're there, it's a completely different thing to watch it on TV. I like watching it on TV because I've been there and done it. But, you know, if you're a fan or a new fan wanting to go in, you've got to go and see one. And Silverstone, is it the best viewing track? No, but we're trying to get new people to go, let's say, and for them to see one corner, one straight or anything is amazing. So, it's as I said, a busy weekend, but I do hope that we can start to get those crowds back that we used to see, you know, in that 2010 to 2018 years.
Cal, was it a bit like the cliche thing where, you know, when you put the visor down, walked out the box, everything else, you know, you could just kind of forget everything else, you know, it was right, okay, let's just get on with the job. I mean, that must be the story at quite a few races, but I imagine at Silverstone, the crap, you know, everything else, the periphery just fades into view when you can actually get on with the business.
Yeah, I never struggled with that. I never put my visor down, my helmet on, left pit lane or anything like that and think, oh, okay, it's a home race. It's, there's more of the crowd here for me than most others. Let's say, you know, you go to Spain, nobody cares. I don't mean that in a rude way. They want to see good racing, let's say. But if you're British, a lot of the British people get behind you. But I never had that feeling, or I'm not saying pressure, to perform. I just did my best. It was as simple as that. I was always focused on the guy in front of me, or trying to do a fast lap for qualifying, or those kind of things. I was not worried about where I was. Let's say it was. Once you're on the track, it's the same as any other race weekend. You want to go around the track as fast as you can go around the track. So I was never one of those guys that thought I had to do something to prepare for a certain race or a track, a corner, or whatever it is. You see these guys on the grid; they're staring down the grid and going into a zone. Let's say I was never one of those guys because I always thought what will be will be. As in, I could never plan a race. I could never sit there and say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go here. I'm going to maybe be in the top 3 in the first lap or something like that, because it never works out that way. Somebody could high side in front of you. You could be 18. So you always have to, let's say, adapt to the situation. And I was always open to any situation you were in. You know, I didn't like most of them, but I mean, I was able to not worry too much about what was going on, because what you can only control what you're doing on the motorcycle, not what everyone else is doing. So I didn't really think too much past lap after lap.
Silverstone versus Donington, Cal.
Difficult one. Really difficult, because I love both circuits. I haven't rode at Donington in years, but I love Donington. I grew up in Donington, riding a lot with Leon and Ron Haslam at the race school. You know, that's what I used to do. My dad was instructing on the race school, and I used to go and ride CB 500s. At first, I used to go and Ron and Anne used to let me take every single bike from the pit lane, and there was maybe 100 bikes, and I was allowed to take them to fuel them, to fill up the fuel. So I used to go ride to the petrol station at the track, fill up with fuel, and ride them back, and then started to ride around the track a little bit, and then turned into me riding every week at the race school. So it was great fun, and I do love Donington. And Do I think we'll get more crowd at Donington? Maybe, because of the viewing points, let's say, that crane of curves, we're looking down there. Do I think it's going to double the amount of crowd that goes? No. But for a racer, I think most riders that have ridden Donington would say Donington. That's not to say that it's anything bad about Silverstone at all, because I love Silverstone. It's got so many fast corners, it's got hairpins, it's got everything you want. The only thing that me personally as a rider likes is undulation. I don't know why, I like going up and down hill. And that's that would be my only thing about Silverstone, is you don't really. So it's, to me, it was much of a muchness. I've always been, I think Silverstone as a paddock, as a venue, is a lot better. But there's just something about Donington, from years back that I remember, and I used to love running around it.
Cal, I think it's fair to say that some of your best performances came at the British Grand Prix. Adam mentioned 2016 when you finished second and you had a great ding-dong with Mark. But I think of the 2012 weekend where you came back through the field and finished, I think, in the top 6, and you were in the victory fight in 2017. I was just wondering, what is your kind of standout memory of racing at the British Grand Prix?
I would say one of my standouts was the pole position on that 2016 year, because the rain was so bad. And I knew I needed to get a lap in early because it was just coming worse and worse and worse. And I managed to get my lap in early, and I was way ahead of the others. That wasn't to say I was way better than the others. I was just way ahead of the others at that time. And that pole time stood for the rest of the session. Race-wise, 2016, of course, it was the first race that we brought Willow to. She was brand new born, standing on the podium. I was disappointed not to win it, because I thought I'm not saying I could have won it. I didn't win it. It's simple as that. Vinales rode away from us, and he rode away from us all. But I had a good battle with Mark, Valentino, Danny, and Jorge, I think. Ian One was there as well. And, I came second. 2012, as you mentioned, was a difficult one because I dislocated my ankle in the practice at the start of the back, didn't qualify. Started at the back. I never forget that morning because they made me run across the room 10 times to make sure I was fit. Honestly, it was horrendous. We taped it so much that it was sort of like in place. And I ran across this room. And if they would have said, "Cal, you can't ride," I also would have accepted it. The reason being is, if you crash and you're in the middle of the track, you need to be able to move. If you can move, you need to be able to move. And it's not just your safety; it's everyone else's safety as well. So I agreed with it. But to be able to come back from the back of the grid, finish 6th at that Grand Prix was a good one. Strange thing, I always seemed in my racing career to ride better when I was injured. I have no idea why. The amount of times I was on the podium with a broken bone or something like that was probably half of the ones that I got. I have no idea why. Just ended up that way. Silverstone, though, the most disappointing, 2017 when I finished 4th, because I'm not saying it was my only chance to win it. It's definitely my only chance now because I won't be going back. But I mean, I wanted to win that race, and I finished 9/10 off the winner, and I was 4th. And that's credit to them. Not, I just stayed in the position that I was in, and I couldn't pass. I had a good race, but it wasn't good enough, and that was the one that I was really disappointed after 2016, that I thought that, I'm not saying, I never thought it was my only chance to win, because obviously I was going years after, but it was the closest that I came to winning that Grand Prix, and I was 4th, and I don't think it would have mattered if I was on the podium. I still would have been disappointed, let's say, that I didn't win. It was some great battles around Silverstone. We could quickly put the knife in a little bit and say when Jack Miller took me out in the rain. That could have been another one, but
I was going to mention that, but I
actually have a theory about why riders ride better in the when they're injured. Is because you can't override.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, you're having to ride within what you can do, and so you're being much more precise and much more concentrated and much more a control sort of thing. You're not trying to force things. And I think riders, you tend to make mistakes when you're fit and you think, I'll have him, and you go for it, and it's just not there. You're much more likely to make a mistake.
I don't know what it is, but I was talking to somebody about this the other day. There was a study done by the Australian Sports Institute or government body or whatever it is, that if you're sick or you're injured or something like that, you actually perform better. Of course, if you've got a broken leg, I think it's going to be difficult if you're a runner. But I mean, your body goes, it compensates so much that you actually perform better. Or if you're sleep deprived, also the same thing. Your body, for one event, I'm not talking a week or something like that. If it's one event, then your body switches to overperforming because it's compensating, and you're worried about it and all these things. So you sort of go into a mode that your body's not normally in. Now, another typical one, when I got the podium in Sachsenring in 2019, I think it was, actually crashed my bicycle on the Wednesday in Holland, and them roads in Holland, when I was still, it was Assen and then Sachsenring, and I cracked the top of my tibia on a cobble, and had to have so much blood pulled off the knee, and rode a great race that weekend, but I could barely walk. It's just strange how it happens in that way. It's also quite stupid when you think about it, that you just go, yeah, okay, well, I'm still going to go and ride. I was always the guy, excuse me, I was always the guy. If I crashed, hurt myself, I'd be the first guy back on the bike. Now I'm nearly 40. I look back and think, most stupid thing I ever did.
Cal, we were talking about that 2 weeks ago, because we were talking about Le Mans, and you had that massive high side, and then you went to get checked out, and you ended up racing, right? I mean, that was wasn't it?
And I look back and think I spent the whole night in hospital again. But that's the whole thing about the body overcompensating. The next day I finished 8th, 7th or 8th. I had a great race. I came from nowhere. I had a great race. I spent the whole night in hospital. I checked myself out about 40 minutes before warm-up. I made warm-up. Just stupid things. And you sat there, and at the time you think, I don't think, oh, okay, I'm going to do it. It's heroic and this, that, and the other. You just do it because you think, I've got to get back on that bike. And that was me. A lot of guys do it because they feel pressure from the team, pressure from, whatever, they go and do it. But if I give any advice now to people, like Lucy's cousin race, Andrew hurt his shoulder, and I just say to him, mate, you hit his head, or anybody who it might be. I'm not just talking about him. I'm talking about Alex Rins in Jerez. I always just say, listen, make sure you're okay first and foremost, because I've done it. I've jumped back on, and it is the most stupid thing you do. To everybody else, it looks amazing, heroic, and you're made of tough stuff, and motorbike riders, they can do this, they can do that. But sometimes I think it's only now that I look back and think there was so many times that I shouldn't have raced. I was very lucky. I never hit my head a lot. I hit my head once, and I raced, and it was stupid to race. I would look back and say it was stupid to race. I did it in morning warm-up, and but I do think they've got a better protocol now. They're looking at it a lot more. They're doing, maybe still not perfect, but I think they're doing a lot more than what they were, let's say. So yeah, these guys jumping back on straight away, I think that, they should really think about their whole career, because a lot of them are young, and this is what I like, what Jorge Martin's doing at the minute, is he's taking his time. As we know, he tried to jump back on and things didn't go well, and I feel for him, but you know, he's got his whole career ahead of him. He doesn't lose his speed. He's not going to, you know, that kind of thing. And that's what I say to people all the time. You're not going to, it's still in there. Your speed, your talent, your race wins and all that. If you've had them before, it's still in there. So it's not, it might take a little bit of time to build back up. But unfortunately, a lot of the guys now, they're worried about contracts. They're worried about not going to the next race because they're going to miss more track time. And that was the way I was. But yeah, maybe they'll sit at my age, look back and think the same thing as me.
On that subject, Cal, what's kind of your view on this rumbling around Martin and his situation with Aprilia? I mean, I know a lot of it is sort of hearsay in terms of the details, but I wondered if you have a view. And also, like, how's your wrist, and are you able to do exactly what you want to do, kind of on the motorcycle and generally these days?
Yeah, well, my view on Jorge Martin's situation is I don't know enough about it, so to comment on it is a difficult one. I've been there. Don't forget. I left early one of my years. But I think it was best for both parties at the time. I had an agreement to go to, let's say, and all of these things. Now it's a completely different scenario and situation. The guy's a world champion. He won the world championship last year, and hopefully it's not a panic thing that he's injured at the moment. He's had a couple of crashes on the bike, and it's that kind of worry. Jorge Martin's a great talent, a great talent. Speed wise, he's probably one of, if not the fastest out there, especially over one lap and what he can do with the bike. So, hopefully it's just hearsay and he continues to recover, comes back, and I think that the manufacturer he's riding for definitely put in a lot of effort to first of all to get him, and also with regards to how their bike has developed over the years. They've done very, very well. So we'll soon see. But difficult to comment on something I know I'm not saying nothing about. But we'll soon see. Wrist wise, hand wise, very good, a lot better. Last year was an absolute nightmare, a complete nightmare. You can't even imagine.
Well, I remember seeing you at Silverstone and you just couldn't move it. It was all just locked up.
Yeah, well, the problem was I had a surgery that took 6 minutes. They just open a little tiny one stitch. They open it so it's only one stitch. The scar's only one stitch, but it got infected. It's as simple as that. They just released a ligament for the carpal tunnel. It got infected, and then I had 3 more infections after that. First infection and then 2 more after that, and 3 surgeries in total. 2 of them to clean it out. The problem that I had was I was taking the antibiotics for a long period of time, most of last year, and with my immune system being down from the antibiotics, I just kept getting infection. So it was a difficult one because I was actually explaining to David not so long ago. The problem was with me is I wasn't able to ride my bicycle, so I could ride indoor, but I couldn't ride outdoor, and that was one of the things that was cracking me most. I know that sounds a very stupid thing, but I'm a creature of habit. My normal life is to go out on my bicycle in the mornings, and that was it. And I wasn't able to do that for a long time, but it's a lot better now, thankfully, and I can do everything. I can ride the motorcycle, no problem at all. So to come out the other side of it, because at one point I didn't think I was going to come out the other side of it, with a hand that was functioning completely to be able to ride again. Of course, everyday life, absolutely fine. But to do the job that I enjoy, riding the motorbike, it was looking like it was going to be difficult in the sort of September time last year, let's say. But after that, it got a lot better, and I was able to ride not so long ago in Valencia.
Cal, we were speaking to Aleix Espargaro in Jerez, and we were talking about the kind of start line chaos in Austin, and he was telling us now that he's retired from racing full time, it was just like a massive relief to him not to be on the grid, just watching it from a safe distance. And I'm just curious, how has your transition been from full time MotoGP racer to test rider? And do you look at kind of race starts like that and think, oh, thank God I'm not out there? Or do you sometimes think, oh, I still kind of wish I could be there?
When I the first couple of years, I was always okay because I was also racing as well. I was doing a lot of testing, and I also had 4 races the first year, 6 or 7 races the second year in the testing role. When the first year was when I replaced Viñales. Then the year after was when Dovi decided to quit, and I did them 6 races. So I was always okay. And once I got back into it, I gave my 100%, and I think it went very well, actually. I didn't miss the racing or the race weekends and the mayhem around it. When I first stopped, I missed competing. For me, also racing a motorcycle was never about, I loved racing motorcycles. I think it was that I loved competing, and that's the reason why you do it. If you just want to go and ride a motorcycle, no problem. I'll go to a track day every day of my life. But I missed the competitive side of it, let's say. But yes, I do agree with him. When there's mayhem and melee like that, half of you thinks, oh, it'd be great to be in that. Because you always want to make a decision that somebody else doesn't make, like a tire trick or staying on the grid or whatever, I have to say, I don't think I would have got off the grid because, as I said, somebody else forcing your hand was never, it was not what I was about. I didn't care, especially, obviously I was riding with LCR Honda at the time with Beefy, and we always stuck to a plan. If we made a decision before, that was the way it was going to be. Obviously, things change on the grid. It can start raining. It can be delayed, and then things are out of your hand, let's say. But we normally made it on the Saturday or after the morning warm-up, and that was it. And as I said, what would be would be. Your tire choice is your tire choice, and you've got to manage it. So, but yeah, part of me thinks, because I probably would have been the one sat back going, this is great, not just watching it, watching the mayhem and everyone panicking and stuff like that. Because I'm not saying what difference does it make, but I think you stick to your own guns and not be forced your hand by somebody else, let's say. Now, of course, everybody went in and everything got delayed and these things. But yeah, I still, it's funny because I'll still text Jack most race weekends. Before the race, it might be, good luck or, you're riding well or something like that. And I always end it by saying, but I'd win that. And then, and then at the end of the race weekend, depending on what's going on and how it's done, I'll always write, I would have won that. So yeah. Funny because after Le Mans, obviously it was raining. He was the guy that would have been up the road with his Arco. It didn't happen. I spoke to him after and said, "Listen, mate, it happens. It does happen. Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't." And I did. I ended the conversation. I was actually on the phone with him saying, "Yeah, I definitely would have won that, mate."
How do you get your competitive kick when you're a test rider? Because you say it's the competition that you love. How do you get that drive? Where do you get that competitiveness from?
Yeah, well, before I was talking about the first couple of years.
Yeah.
Then even after that, obviously I was not racing as much. I did one race in Motegi, and I was competitive then because it was raining. I was raging when they didn't restart. We went to the grid and all that because I was just looking at the screen. I thought, I was faster than Jack, who was in the front. He was on a podium at the time, and I was coming back through. But after that, I started to realise I'm not going to be a full-time MotoGP rider again. I knew I wasn't anyway, but And, testing, it's not easy. It's not easy to do. I enjoy it, and I do enjoy it, but it's not an easy job to do. The thing is, when I tested, I always tried to be fast and competitive with myself. That was my main thing. If I go out and do a run, the next run, I wanted to be the same lap time or better, or improve in an area or a corner. Of course, you're there to improve the bike, but also me improving what I'd done the previous run or the previous day, or also help develop the bike, and I think you have to have them small goals than just riding around, giving information. You still have to be wanting to be competitive, because if you don't want to be competitive, you're riding around 5 seconds too slow, 4 or 5 seconds too slow. And then a lot of the information or these things, I'm not saying it's irrelevant, but it's not. It's easy. I tried to explain this to somebody the other day as well. Riding a MotoGP bike, the harder you ride them, the better they feel.
Yeah.
They're not like street bikes. It's like a Formula One car. You can't go on the road with a Formula One car. You won't even get around the corner. So, but the faster you drive it, the better it'll feel. And that's like MotoGP. So I was always still being able to be competitive with the testing crew chief, Silvano. We used to throw a few tyres in here and there to do a lap time to make sure that, to try and improve the fast lap for the guys that are racing, the factory Yamaha, the riders, and, all them kind of things. So I was always able to be okay doing the testing wrong. And, still am able to be competitive with myself enough that you develop the bike in a way that it should be developed, instead of just saying, okay, well, we're just riding around the track, because it doesn't work like that, and I've always been a guy, as you know, I give 100%. If I commit to something, I give 100%, no matter what it is. And sometimes it works in your favor, sometimes it doesn't. But I've never been a quitter. I've never been a guy that will just do something for the sake of doing it. I did it, and I do the test riding to improve, help the others, and I get reward from that. And that also motivates you to continue to give 100%. I think it goes in a big circle that, it's like with anything, the more you put in, the more you get out.
Cal, you've been with Yamaha now since 2021. It's fair to say that there were a few years where it did seem that not just Yamaha, but the Japanese factories in general were a little bit lost and directionless. But it looks as though there's a huge commitment there, a huge desire to get back up front. I'm just curious about, what's the kind of change you've seen from sort of behind the scenes in Yamaha's outlook, and how they are, the kind of seriousness with which they're approaching racing in the last few years.
Yeah, well, definitely, with regards to the testing, I've seen that come on year upon year. The first year that I did with the test team was difficult. They never always had let's say a full-time test team. They did some tests and this, that, and the other, where now they're fully focused on bringing Yamaha back to the front. And also, the other Japanese manufacturer with Honda, they're the same. And I love to see it. I love to see what they're doing, because they've gone from struggling to now we start to see improvement again of all the riders. Obviously we're looking now that Yamaha's got 4 riders and they're doing well. Of course, we've had disappointment with Miguel being injured, but even at Le Mans there, you saw he got back on the bike and he was going very, very well until he crashed in the race. But the effort and commitment that Yamaha are putting in is second to none. And I've been able to see firsthand what the people that they've gone and got, for a start, the engineers, the technicians, the mechanics, all these things, to be able to improve. And I think that the Japanese have started to listen a lot more to the European guys coming in as well, which is great. And then I think it's working very smoothly to be able to make that transition back to the front again, because as we've seen in the last races of Fabio and also in Le Mans, Alex rode a great race. So they're putting in a lot of effort, a lot of resources to be able to come back to the front. And the future, I think, for them will be that they will be back at the front and being able to battle with the European manufacturers, which is what we all want to see. Also, the other Japanese manufacturer with Honda, I think they're doing exactly the same thing. I think Honda as a manufacturer are more, let's say, aggressive and willing to take risks. But I think now Yamaha are very much coming to that direction. And I think it's paying off for both of them. And now people always say to me, "Oh, why is Yamaha not at the front? Why is Honda not at the front?" Suzuki were there and not there, and Ducati and Aprilia and KTM they're at the front now. Why is that? And I say, well, I think it swings and roundabouts because Ducati never won anything for 15 years. A championship or 15 years about that kind of time. And I said, Honda and Yamaha were the ones always winning, and you see in 2 years it might come back round again. Ducati works so hard to come back to the front. Yes, they're winning all the time now, but that doesn't mean that they're going to continue to win. And I think that the Japanese manufacturers will come back, and obviously we all hope as well, because it brings better racing, more stuff for you journalists to talk about, and get excited about. Nobody wants to see the same winner every week or the same manufacturer win every week. And me working with Yamaha and riding for Yamaha, of course I want them back at the front. And I think that the riders that we have on board the bikes now, they're capable of doing that. There's no doubt. And the engineers, Japanese and European, are some of the best in the paddock. So why not?
Just 3 more things to ask you about before we let you go, Cal. First of all, 2025, if I could ask you to put yourself in Pecco Bagnaia's shoes for a moment. I mean, you had more than 5 years of looking at Mark's data. I mean, if you were Bagnaia, how would you approach the rest of the year? What would you do? Is there anything you can do?
It's difficult because he's got Marc Marquez as his teammate. Now, I'm not saying... I think Pecco is a very good rider. He's headstrong as well. But he's not as headstrong as Marc Marquez. It's as simple as that. And
who is?
Yeah, that and the speed and the talent, I don't believe he's as good. He's not Marc Marquez. So I think I'm not saying he's always going to be beat. Marc is beatable, and Pecco, I'm sure, can beat him. But can he beat him over a season? In my opinion, no. But that's not to say that he won't and that he's not giving his 100%. It just doesn't always go the rider's way how they want it to go. Now, people are making a big deal of, he's had the terrible start to the season, all of these things. A lot of that can just be luck, and it can be. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time in Le Mans. He got knocked off by an air. All of these things that, yes, he's making some mistakes, but we've also seen Marc lose potential 50 points this year. He's made some mistakes as well. So I don't believe that Pecco Bagnaia has got any slower, any worse, or any better for that instance. I think the problem is Marc's came in and Marc's stronger, but that sometimes you just have to accept that and ride your own race in your own championship. As you said, I rode with Marc for 6 years. I know that feeling, trust me. And I was not in the position Pecco Bagnaia was in, but I knew Marc was beatable at certain races, and I knew every race that Marc will be there, that Marc is going to be the strongest for the championship and all this thing. But if you don't think you can beat him, there's no point to turn up, in my opinion. So I always went into the race weekend thinking I could win the race, because there's 22 guys on the grid. So you've got a chance. If you're on the grid, you've got a chance. It's as simple as that. That was the way I always looked at it. But yeah, does he look at Mark's data and say, "Oh, that's amazing"? I don't think so. I think that he looks at Mark's data and says, "Okay, he does that better than me, but I also do this better than him." And
Okay.
I think that's the way that he's got to look at it, and the way that he will look at it. He's got a great team. He's got Davide Tardozzi as a team manager. Puts those kind of things into perspective very, very well. And I think that he will have the same amount of support, if not more, than what he did before. And I believe that, he's still on par to be at the top of the championship as well. You're asking if you're asking my opinion on who I think will win, I think Mark will win, of course. But that doesn't mean Pecco won't have a great season, come back and be strong and win a load of races either. I do think he will. So, well, I think Mark will win most, but I mean, but that's what happens in teams. There's two riders in a team, and there's only one of them that can beat the other one. So it's as simple as that, But I believe that they're both strong, both have their own riding styles, way to assess things and that. But Mark's just Mark, isn't he? He's not thinking about anybody but himself, which is exactly how he needs to be and how he wants it to be. And that's the reason why he's done what he's done in his career.
I want to ask about the future, Cal. I think if your first year you came in on 800s and then you switched to thousands, and you've been on Bridgestones, you've been on Michelins before that, you're on Pirellis and World Supers. How do you see 2027 with the rules, with 850cc bikes, with no ride height devices, less aero and Pirelli tyres? Have you thought about that? Are you looking forward to it? Do you think it's going to be better racing?
I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Now, what I've always said is I think Carmelo and MotoGP do a fantastic job. Now, I've been Carmelo's biggest supporter of what he's done with the championship from 2012 until now, and the reason is I was there in the CRT change. Of how he did that was so clever, that everyone was in the end going to be on the same electronic system. How everyone was going to get these grid slots. How he worked that everyone's got the same tire, same tires and the same opportunity, let's say, of satellite teams to be able to win races and challenge. Because back in the day, you saw satellite guys doing that, and then there was a period where satellite, I'm not saying there's no point to be on the grid, but it was very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Now we saw a satellite team win, yes, factory bike, but a satellite team won championship last year.
Yeah.
And so I think they know what they're doing. That's, they don't just make the decision themselves. I think that they, as we know with MMSA, the teams, they all have a say in it. Because I do think that they want their competitors to be able to compete. If you get what I mean. Of course, Yamaha, Ducati, they want to win every race of every weekend. But I think that they want competition as well, because if there's no competition, there's no point to be there. In my opinion. So I do believe that going forward, they're making the right choices. Do I believe that it will change the speed? No, I think 850 is still going to be going. I'm not saying the same speed. They're still going very, very fast. Now, it's not speed that we need to make racing better. The problem is one guy will go 1 kilometre faster than the next year. The next manufacturer will make a bike that will go 2 kilometres faster than that, and that's why the speeds now are just getting insane. They don't need that. They don't need that speed to be able to make good racing and be competitive. So it's a difficult one. Am I glad that they're taking away devices and aero? Yes, because I'm not saying I don't like it. It's just, it's the sign of the times. It's like going with the kids, isn't it? You know, you have to do it. It's as simple as that. But the bikes are hard to ride. They're very hard to ride. You know, as in change direction, they're heavy.
Yeah.
You've got buttons everywhere and all of these things. And is the racing any better? I don't know. I don't think so. You know, I was watching the race the other day in Le Mans, wet, Michelin's the best wet tyres that you can get available for MotoGP grid. And I remember I raced Le Mans. I know what lap time is in the rain. And in 2012, we were with Bridgestones then. Rain tyres still very good as well. I would say on par with Michelin's. And we're going faster in 2012 than what they were going the other day in Le Mans in the race. So imagine all that's been invested then, they're right, and they're going the same speed. So,
yeah,
you know, I think the tyres are the biggest thing to make it more competitive. I think that they need to, you know, again, it's only my opinion. I think they need to go back to the tyres we had in 2018, where they weren't as good. But it brought racing that was, people had to manage the race. Some guy went hard at the start, one guy went hard in the middle, one guy went hard at the end, and there was battles on the last lap. You know, now it seems that everybody can just go as hard as they want for as long as they want, you know, and everybody's bike's good. So that's my biggest thing. But do I think Pirelli coming in will make a difference? I still think the guys that are at the front will be at the front because they can manage the best. So I don't know. I don't know enough about the full changes of how these bikes will be. I think you will see one manufacturer be amazing and some manufacturers be really struggling, you know. But, you know, it is what it is. The best era was when it changed back from 800. Obviously, I rode the 800. And then the next year we went to 1,000. From Valencia, from Sunday race day on 800 to the Tuesday on 1,000 was like best day ever, because you felt like you could ride them, you could manage things, you had to be able to slide the bike and all these things. The 800s for me were very robotic. They were very difficult, but I'd come from a super bike that the bike moves a lot. You have to ride it, you have to manage it, let's say at the time. So it was difficult when I was on the 800. So I liked the 1,000. But going back to the 850, we're soon going to see, I suppose.
And Cal, just a final one from me. Obviously, with Silverstone coming up this weekend and you having had excellent success there in the past, just curious, what is the key to being fast at Silverstone? What is key to nailing a lap time there? Because it's obviously quite a unique layout that is always very popular with the riders. Just your point of view on that.
I think you have to be fast in the fast corners. I know that's states the obvious, but I think the most amount of time is gained in the fast corners, and how you manage it. It's a hard race, Silverstone. At the end of the race, especially with these the aerodynamics on the bike now, to change direction all the time with a lot of throttle is a difficult race, a physical race. But you know, the problem is with the small corners, the hairpins, and everybody brakes the same, give or take. You know, so you don't gain a lot of time in that area, or you don't gain a lot of time in acceleration now because everyone's bike accelerates very, very similar. So where they will make the time and where the most amount to be gained, I would say, on your competitors is being able to make a bike that goes through the fast corners faster, you know, changes direction the easiest. And, you know, I think the year before we saw with Alish with the Aprilia, the bike that was really turned very, very well. You know, in fast change direction, they say it feels like a 250 or this kind of thing. That's what I'm talking about, having a bike that is able to change direction and turn very, very well. Fabio in 2021 same kind of thing when the bike was turning well. So I think it's nailing those change of directions is one of the biggest things, because there's no hard braking, let's say, to be able to gain a lot of time, because they all brake in the same place, give or take a couple of meters here and there. So you're not going to make 2/10 in the braking zone, because they're already on the limit as it is. The guy who's riding around at the back, he's completely on the limit as well. And there's not enough of these hard braking zones in Silverstone to be able to take advantage of, let's say. So it's about setting your bike up to be good through the fast corners and changing direction. Could be completely wrong. And we're going to see a bike win that doesn't turn very well. I don't know.
Listen, you spent years in media debriefs having to listen to our questions, so thanks ever so much for coming on the podcast and listening to us set more. Are we going to see you at a race soon?
Yeah, I'll definitely be at a race soon. I'm not sure which one, but I will be at a race very, very soon, and I won't be doing you any debrief. So two things, because I won't be racing and I don't have to. So
exactly. Listen, mate, thanks ever so much for your time. All the best, and cool. We do hope to see you soon.
Thanks for inviting me on.
Thanks again to Cal Crutchlow there for joining us on the Paddock Pass podcast. A reminder, everybody, that we are backed by rental.com. If you head to the website and you have a street bike, you can find a range of accessories to spice up that street bike, such as clip-ons, bars, grips, chain wheels, all sorts. Go and have a look at rental.com, and you can use the Fit My Bike option to find exactly what you need for the wheels that you have on the road or in the garage. We're also backed by Pole Position Travel for 2025. So if you are considering a visit to a Grand Prix or a World Superbike round, then go to polepositiontravel.com. Use the code PPOD25X. That's PPOD 25X, and you'll get a discount for listening to the Paddock Pass podcast. Pole Position Travel not only provide the travel and accommodation around certain race events, they also line up lots of other stuff connected to the event, such as hospitality visits, talks by people such as us. So there's a prime opportunity for catching up on your sleep, and all sorts of other activities connected by to the race events, thanks to the fine people at Pole Position Travel. So have a look at the website there, and come along to a race soon, guys. I mean, Cal pretty much summed up a lot of what we wanted to know about Silverstone, but Dave, there's been a lot of winners and a lot of different motorcycles on the top of the podium at this track. It's one of the longest in the series, one of the fastest in the series. I mean, we can't predict what the British weather's going to do, because this is actually the earliest British Grand Prix for quite some time. I think even going back into the noughties. And, before, certainly while it's been at Silverstone since 2010. So we don't know what the climate's going to do. But, it does seem that, MotoGP is not going to go entirely to the form book based on history.
No, exactly. I mean, I haven't looked today because it keeps on changing. But it looks like we can have a dry-ish Friday and probably a wettish Saturday, and maybe a half wet, half dry Sunday. So anything can. It could be sort of all over the place, which then really opens it up to all sorts of things happening. I mean, I think the last time I can remember it being this early, wasn't there didn't we go in May or June sometime, 12 or 13, when it absolutely lashed it down? It was very, very, I remember that being very, very wet, because my parents came, and it put them off coming to a MotoGP race for a very, very long time. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, it is a track which rewards all sorts of things, and yeah, as Cal said, setting it up for a faster, being able to get through the corners faster. Maybe it will favour the Yamaha a little bit. Maybe it'll favour the Aprilia. It could be
Maverick Vinales.
Maverick Vinales, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I just want to make Neil smile. That was my
swing.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, genuinely, I think it's quite difficult to predict. I mean, the thing that is that Mark is always good in the wet as well. So that Mark is going to be there. But it is also the kind of circumstance where it's going to be easy to make a mistake. And that, that's really going to put the cat. It could really put the cat among the pigeons.
Now, Maverick Vinales took his first Grand Prix win at Silverstone. We've also seen some of your other, former loves like Andrea Dovizioso take victory there. And it's been quite a mixed bag. I mean, we've had Alessio Spargaro winning on the Aprilia and Ea Bastianini on the Ducati last year. Fabio Quartararo has won there, Pecco Bagnaia as well. Am I exaggerating too much by saying this could be one of the hardest GPs to predict, this season?
Yeah, I think it could be reasonably open-eyed. Yeah, like we haven't had the same winner there since I think 2012, 2013. Jorge Lorenzo won those two races, but since 13 we've had a different winner every single year. As you say, quite a variety with the manufacturers as well. And just looking at some of the recent form, I mean, Quartararo has been on pole position the last two races, and you have to imagine that the Yamaha is going to be very well suited to large sections of the Silverstone track. You can't rule out the factory Ducatis because Bastianini, as you say, won last year from. Well, it was an old Ducati. Was it an old Ducati podium? Certainly, Martin was in second place. I think Bagnaia was maybe in third. So that indicates that the Ducati is going to be strong no matter what. And if it's wet on Saturday, then we're going to have to maybe consider our good mate Johan Zarco, who obviously won in pretty bad conditions in Le Mans, just a week ago or over a week ago. So I think there's plenty of names to choose from. Maverick Vinales as well, being one of them, because we know that you could basically bet your mortgage on Maverick doing well at like 3 circuits on the calendar. Recently, he's been able to do that at other places as well. But Silverstone, along with Phillip Island, was always one of those kind of givens that Maverick would turn up. And he was that year that Bagnaia won in 22. Maverick was really starting to come good with the Aprilia that year, and I remember he probably should have won that race. Actually, he charged through from about 6th, overtook all of the leading guys in the leading group. Even overtook Bagnaia, I think, in the penultimate lap, and didn't quite get the job done. But yeah, so how many is that enough names to have thrown into the hat?
You forgot Alex Marquez. He loves Silverstone. Yep. He might pull his season back onto track after something of a dramatic weekend in Le Mans.
I think also that KTM is the only manufacturer which hasn't won at Silverstone, because we've had Honda win there, Yamaha, Suzuki, obviously, Aprilia with Aleix, Ducati. Maverick on a KTM would have a certain symmetry, which would be rather pleasant.
The last year, 2024, we had the 75th anniversary liveries. I mean, that added a novelty factor to, Silverstone. We also had Jake Dixon, victorious in Moto2. I mean, it's quite a memorable Grand Prix of the United Kingdom and 16 other words. But, this year, I mean, we can be optimistic about Dixon's chances again, but just, speaking with Cal Crutchlow there, God, we miss him.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we're lucky to still have Jack Miller to sort of spice things up. But he's not obviously he's not a British rider, but at least he's an English-speaking rider, and he's always excellent value. But I mean, Jake is in good form. Jake has been fast. We know that Jake is fast around Silverstone, so you would have to think, and he needs a good result to get things a little bit back on track again.
Yeah, exactly. And, we've obviously spoken in previous years about the attendance at Silverstone not being fantastic in the last, post, I guess, COVID years. You have to imagine, the fact that we don't have a British rider in MotoGP is one of the big reasons behind that. And not just that, I mean, Cal was, as he just mentioned, he was genuinely in the fight for a couple of wins at British Grand Prix. So home fans were going there with the thought that they could see something pretty historic. Dixon is kind of taking on that mantle now, and he obviously did a brilliant ride there last year, fighting with Aaron Canet. Coming out on top, and he has been in good form, although the last 2 races have been a little bit tricky, and you feel that the Calax definitely has the kind of the edge of the Boscoscuro chassis. Boscoscuro have a really good record at Silverstone. Fermin Aldeguer won the race there dominantly in 2023. So on paper, you think it should be a really good track, but then Le Mans has always been a good track for Boscoscuro, and Calax really handed them their arses 2 weeks ago. So I think a lot of it is going to come down to that. But yeah, Dixon surely will be going in as one of the favourites in Moto2.
It was quite delicious actually having a free weekend without any motorcycle racing. I mean, I know World Superbike were in action in Czech Republic, but
which was a cracker.
Yes. I mean, Steve Gordo and maybe Ebo will be doing their Superbike show. So if you're following this podcast, then don't forget to hang on and check your feeds for that one coming up in the next couple of days. But we had the Formula One on in our house at Imola, and it kind of occurred to me just watching it. Oh, come on, Dave, don't be the Panto. It's not a Panto villain. Sort of watching my 18-year-old, he was invested in the program because, he knew about the drivers and the teams. He was more asking about how the personalities were getting on rather than watching the action, which is quite difficult to transmit the excitement of. And, that's something where MotoGP is on the opposite, isn't it? Because in MotoGP, you're drawn to the spectacular visual nature of what the riders are doing and also the action on track, but you might not necessarily know who the 73 blue Ducati is. It's kind of a strange how it's the reverse scenario. And that predicament affects the crowd at Silverstone. I mean, it's the biggest crowds were when we had Cal Crutchlow doing BT Sport kind of promos and plugs. He was able to pop up in national media, mainstream media, to get some coverage, and it's a bit of a miss. I mean, I'm sure Dorna, one of their big things would be to get an American rider and get a British rider on the grid, but as we know, it's not a short-term solution. So I'm curious of what crowd does turn up at Silverstone this weekend, because the Isle of Man TT is about to get underway. The Bike Shed show is happening at Tobacco Dock in central London. I mean, that doesn't need to stop people turning up on a Saturday or a Sunday, but I don't want to get too close to the crowd figures, Dave, because I know how you feel about them.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're also missing the elephant in the room because the crowd numbers were always biggest when Valentino Rossi was around, because he was a personality. Yes, he was incredibly exciting to watch as a racer, but it was also his personality. He was so good at committing. He had so much charisma. He was so good at communicating what MotoGP was about. He sort of exuded excitement, and that is what I mean. Like Marc Marquez is an amazing racer, and I think Marc Marquez is a better racer than Valentino Rossi, but Valentino Rossi was so much bigger than Marc is ever going to be, even though Marc has also got charisma. He's an attractive personality. He's a fun personality. He's got lots and lots of things, but he's not Valentino Rossi. Valentino Rossi was something exceptional, and it's those personalities which really sell the sport, and finding that, because a personality again is not necessarily something you can easily fake.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds like you've been reading a book, Dave.
I have been reading a book, and it's very, very good. Genuinely, I'm very much enjoying your Grand Prix motorcycle racing book. It's great. I know, like I said to you before, like one of the great things is reading about, because you've spent so much time in motocross and other sports as well, being able to draw the bigger picture, which I think is often something we miss when we focus just too much on MotoGP and one sport.
Yeah, I hasten to add that wasn't a lead into a shameless plug.
Well,
it should be. It should be. I mean, genuinely, it's a great book. I genuinely, really, I'm actually quite annoyed because it's really well written, and that should be me, you bastard.
Well, listen, let's move on. In terms of predictions for this weekend, as we mentioned, it's not so clear cut. Not like, the Formula One where Max Verstappen has won like 4 years in a row at Imola. It's not like a Marc Marquez at Sachsenring scenario at Silverstone. On that note, we also have the Alpine Stars Paddock Pass Podcast Fantasy League. If you are playing the MotoGP game online and picking your team, then jump into our league, because I think we're well over 3,000 players joined up. And at the end of the season, there will be an Alpine Stars goodie pack to give away. So, keep playing, keep trying to make your team, and maybe there'll be something in it for you at the end of the year. No cost involved, of course. It's all completely free. And I'm getting better. I'm doing pretty good, apparently.
Yeah, you are. It's quite disappointing.
I mean, you're not inside the top 2,000, but, little gains.
At least it isn't sort of completely you're completely stuck down the bottom there. No, you're actually quite competitive.
You have broken into the top 2,500, so there is that.
Yeah, it's not a debacle yet.
No, exactly. No,
silver linings and all that.
Yeah, we're going to have to catch Steve English.
Silver Riders as well.
Yes, don't. Oh, yeah. Neil, tell me your pick for the weekend, and who do you fancy for victory in Silverstone?
I'm gonna, go out on a bit of a limb, and I'm gonna say Fabio Quartararo is going to win. I think it could just be one of those slightly strange weekends where weather does a bit of a juiciness. Is that even a phrase? No, it's not.
It is now.
It is now. But it makes things juicy. Let's say it juices things up. I just have a feeling that it's not going to be the usual Marquez brothers Bagnaia kind of hegemony. We're going to see it shaken up a little bit.
I think that Marquez is going to piss it, but I am going to put Maverick firmly on the podium. What's your call, Dave?
I'm going to say that Jack Miller is going to surprise people, because I think the conditions are going to play into his hand. I think it's going to be really annoyed about what happened at Le Mans, so he's got a point to prove. And also, it's contract times are coming up. There's all this stuff going on in the background. Talk about Top Rack. Talk about what Jack is going to be doing. His contract is up at the end of the year. I think a win at Silverstone would definitely spice things up, make things more complicated, make things more interesting, and also raise Miller's profile. But also, it's going to suit him. The conditions really are going to be his conditions. So, I think he could be surprised. I completely expect to be confounded by reality, but that's the same with every single prediction I make. So why should this be any different?
Well, Jack Miller's first Grand Prix win, Dave, was at that religious place over in your country.
Yes.
And we've got a pretty good competition, right? Coming up that Grand Prix.
We have an excellent competition. We have a pair of paddock passes for the Dutch TT at Assen, the 100th Dutch TT at Assen. So it's going to be quite a special occasion. There's lots of extra stuff going on there. If you are a paddock insider for on the annual basis, if you sign up for the whole year, or if you are a paddock VIP or expert, the highest level of our Patreon backers, then you can win. You stand a chance to win these passes. That is, you can find out more details by going to our Patreon page, and to be eligible, you have to comment on the post, because obviously we want to know that you're going to be able to make it to Assen. Competition closes at the end of this month, May 31st. So the 1st of June, we shall start drawing a winner. Assen is a great place. It's a really good paddock as well, because you can get onto the roof of the pits. You can look down into the pits. You can look across. You can see an awful lot of the track. So it's definitely worth. It's one of the races. It's one of the best races to spend in the paddock, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Well said. And a reminder, of course, that we were able to give away to our patrons 3 entry tickets to the British Grand Prix at Silverstone this weekend. So those people coming over will be enjoying also a tour of the paddock on Sunday. So big thanks to the people at Silverstone for putting those on the podcast. If you're still considering going to the British Grand Prix, then do go, because you can get, I think a general admission ticket is like £120 just for the Sunday. Or maybe it's just 100. Well, you get, if you book through the website, you can get a ticket for 3 days or just the Sunday. You can also get a roving grandstand or roaming grandstand pass, where you can pretty much sit where you want throughout the grandstand facilities at Silverstone. That's entirely worth it. If you have kids with you and they're under age 11, they get in for free. If they're under 16, then they're 50% off the adult ticket price. So if you're going to go to the TT and you've still got a little bit of money left in the pocket, then consider going to Silverstone on the Friday or the Saturday. Or, you're going to the Bike Shed show in London, then maybe you can also pop to Silverstone on the Sunday or the Saturday. But check out the British Grand Prix. It'll be interesting to see how the climate would be. And of course, we're coming to the end of this fantastic era, 1000cc motorcycles, lots of aero, lots of GD-Linga, little tricks and devices. So come along and make the most of it. Anything else, guys, or are we pretty much wrapping the show?
Oh, yeah, one thing, KTM.
Yes.
Yes, there's been a little bit of news. It looks like Bajaj is going to come forward and fund well, from what I understand from reading the Indian media, is that Bajaj Auto, which is the Dutch subsidiary of Bajaj, the Indian manufacturing giant, they have taken out a very large loan, which is just enough to cover the debts owed by KTM, which they have to pay off by this Friday. That means that it looks like they're going to the KTM will be saved. KTM as a manufacturing entity will be saved. The motorbikes. It likely means that Bajaj is going to get control, or at least a much larger stake in KTM. What that means for the MotoGP program is difficult to say, but my personal guess, based on nothing at all, is that I think if Bajaj is taking over KTM, there's a bigger chance that they will continue racing, because it's in their interest. It's a really good way of promoting the brand. I think if it had been a consortium of banks or something like that, then it would have been much more difficult to justify the racing. It would have been, look, we're going to focus on building motorbikes. But I think it's all still up in the air. And, for everyone who works at KTM, for everyone who works in KTM's sort of various racing programs, then, fingers crossed for them.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The factory needs a firm footing before it can decide on a marketing and racing strategy. So, fingers crossed that gets sorted, and then we'll know what the Orange Camp are going to be doing, throughout the disciplines, because the off-road is extremely strong. Not only Dakar, taking Supercross titles, taking a lot of MXGP wins. So KTM are still strong in a competitive sense, and obviously quite prevalent still. That's it. Thanks for listening to our British Grand Prix preview. Silverstone this weekend. We'll be back with our Paddock Note show on Thursday. So get on the Patreon channel if you want to hear the extra content throughout the Grand Prix, because we will be recording live from Silverstone Media Centre and doing as much as we can from this next round of MotoGP. Thanks for listening.
Plus also the Discord. I mean, sign up for a Patreon and you get on the Discord and chat to a whole bunch of like-minded MotoGP fans who are really quite completely bonkers about motorbike racing.
Indeed. Cheers, guys.